All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is our Montgomery County Council state legislative session for today, February 24th. In our packets, we have a number of updates. We'll get an update on the General Assembly session to date, and then so there are a couple of things that we need to do in the next hour. One is talk about the federal earmarks that are in your packet. And then also there is a draft stakeholder letter regarding developmental disability administration. Both of those things we'd like to get council input on. And then we would also like to review some of the local and bi-county bills that we've been tracking, and we do have representatives here from the planning department as well, because there's some housing bills that we can get an update on. But I will turn it over to the team and get us going.
All right. Well, thank you. So just a little bit about the General Assembly session. I think you've all read in the newspapers some of the challenges that Maryland is facing, and they are particularly difficult because of the federal landscape, which is hard to understand. So typically, the General Assembly, the first house that moves the budget, would be putting its budget out probably like on the 10th. Everything's delayed by probably at least 10 days. So the House won't be putting out its budget until probably the 17th or sometime the week of March 17. So there is a 83-day kind of a goal that's always set, and a lot of people think, well, if they don't pass that budget by that date, they're in like a whole world of trouble. That's not uncommon for the governor to send down a letter that potentially extends the session if they're not able to decide on a budget. Hopefully that won't happen. They still have time to make that happen. But the thought is that they want to see what happens on March 14th at the federal level. Get a sense of whether that's some contextual information that helps them make decisions or doesn't hold them making decisions up. And then the thought is that potentially they will get a budget out on time, but they may need to return after the session adjourns, maybe in the fall, when they have more information about the federal landscape and some more information, too, about the state situation. So that's where that stands. The Budget Reconciliation Act is actually going to be heard on the 27th. That's this week. There are recommendations that do, I think that you've probably read this too, that do double the shift of the teacher retirement to counties. So that's an issue. It's out there, and I would assume when the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act is heard on Thursday, there will be a whole litany of additional recommendations, since it sounds like the Senate has an interest in potentially going about $500 million deeper into expenditure cuts. So that's where that stands. And also it's the height of the session, so there's a lot of big bills being heard right now, of which one is the solar bill that's going to be heard on Friday. And there will be representation from the council on that. And trying to think if that's really kind of where things are at right now from that.
Great. All right. Before we move on, anyone have any questions on the general update? No? All right. Why don't we move on to the federal earmarks?
Sarah Morningstar with the Office of Intergovernmental Relations. Nice to see everybody. I would, with regard to the earmarks, in your packet, you first had a chart showing pending earmarks for FY25 that are in bills that are pending. We've been requested to look to FY26, submit projects for FY26 without going back to FY25. So depending on what Congress does with FY25, we may be going back to FY25, but at this point we've been directed to please come in with projects that are not related to what we have already in FY25 bills. So the list of projects that you have brief descriptions of, there are 11 of them that cross a number of different departments, transportation. I can go through them individually, or do you want me to do that? Okay. So I can do a 10,000 foot. So Department of Environmental Protection has a Wheaton Environmental Arts Walk and Streetery project with a request of $1.8 million to, as the description shows, to revitalize a certain area of Wheaton. Does anybody want more information on that? Okay. The next project was put forth by the Community Use of Public Facilities, dealing with an out-of-school time network, creating an out-of-school time network with an earmark request of $1 million. It would provide developmental education and mentoring services to youth during non-instructional days and would include being open after school as well as weekend hours. Again, seeking $1 million for that. The next three were advanced by our Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. The first one dealing a joint public safety operations center. It's a collaborative project to enhance emergency preparedness, response, and mitigation. That's a request for $3.2 million. With a number of these, I will say, we we look at the instructions that are provided by our congressional delegation to see what accounts this project may fit under. So for some of these, for this one, for example, we would try to seek money under FEMA, and again, working with our congressional delegation to see if it's viable. The next is a perimeter fence project, a Public Safety Technical Operations Office perimeter fence and gate request for $975,000. The next is a Public Safety Youth Educational Immersive Experience project program requesting $200,000. It would create a summer program for youth to attend a program hosted by multiple public safety agencies serving the county, including emergency management, homeland security, fire and rescue, to give kids a chance to see what's possible in those areas. Under HHS, we have a mobile crisis outreach team vehicles. It's a request for vehicles to transport mobile outreach teams that the county has. That's a request for $200,000. HHS also put forth a public health service, HIV, sexually transmitted infection services for $776,138. That's in there because the money is drying up. And we were encouraged in a conversation with our congressional delegation staff to go ahead and put it in, see if there's going to be any money for it. Again, no, the federal picture is so murky right now, but it's almost sort of a no ask, no get. That we should at least advise them of the situation that we're having. The next three projects were DOT projects: Georgia Avenue bus lanes for $6.4 million to improve existing temporary bus lanes on Georgia Avenue. The next one seems a little different, but it was DOT right-of-way stump removal. The county has a multi-million-dollar hole for trying to get stumps done. We don't really know if there's something that's eligible, but again, we weren't told not to, so we're going to put it in, but I don't know that there's a real clear eligible transportation account for that. The third for DOT is a safe street lighting, installation of high-efficiency street lighting in high-priority sections of the county, seeking $1.24 million. The last earmark request is for $3.98 by the police, an AI-based predictive policing and community engagement enhancement project that Montgomery County Police would be doing in collaboration with the University of Maryland, integrating cutting-edge AI technologies with intelligent-led policing to enhance crime prevention, resource optimization, and community relations. This is something that is being developed, again, in collaboration with the University of Maryland, and they would be seeking about $4 million. So with that, the portals, we have to put these requests into our delegation portals. Our senators' portals for consideration is open now. You need to have information in by the 7th of March. Congresswoman April McClain Delaney has her portal open, same deadline, March 7th. I have not seen portals yet for Congressman Ivey and Congressman Raskin, but we'll keep an eye out for those. So with that, I'd be seeking the council's okay that these projects can be submitted for consideration.
Any questions, or Councilmember Sales? I have it moved. Second. Any other question? No? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, and that is everyone in favor of submitting these for the federal earmarks. Thank you, Ms. Morningstar. Great. Anything else on earmarks, or I think we also had in our packet the local bond initiatives?
Yeah, and this is a new entry. We usually provide these. These are just requests that are coming in that we're tracking. They're coming, projects in Montgomery County that are looking for state capital grants. And one thing that we do like to look at, too, is on occasion, some of the sheets they'll reference where they're looking for a county commitment, and we like to let you know that, too. So this is a list that will continue to grow, I'm sure, but this is the first iteration of that.
Great. All right, not seeing any questions. If we could move down to the, just in case we are pressed on time, because I know PHP has a committee session after this, to the letter on the developmental disability, developmental disability administration. That's right, yeah.
Sure. So Leslie Fry, legislative analyst with HHS. So the governor's proposed budget initially proposed $197 million in cuts to the Developmental Disabilities Administration's FY25 budget. And the news late last week was that those FY25 cuts will be, essentially restored. However, there is still proposed $450 million in cuts for FY26 to the DDA budget. And so one of those cuts directly affects providers in Montgomery County. It's called the geographical rate differential, and what it does is it allows DDA to reimburse our providers at a slightly higher rate given the higher cost of living and doing business in Montgomery County and 4 other counties in the state. So what you have before you is a draft letter that we would like you to sign on to, along with representatives. We've approached all 4 other counties affected by the elimination of the geographical rate differential in the FY26 proposed budget, just asking to reconsider that cut.
All right, so I have Councilmember Albanaz moved, Councilmember Friedson second. Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of moving the letter? All right, we're signed on.
Thank you.
Great. All right. I guess we can go back to local bills and get an update on this.
We have 2 in the packet that we just wanted to bring back because they had gotten a lot of conversation, and so they were, and now they have been, their status has changed slightly, and one of them is the WSSC transparency bill, and the other one is the school board compensation bill, and they're both Kathleen's.
Mm-hmm. Good afternoon, Kathleen Boucher, Special Assistant to the Director, Office of Intergovernmental Relations. So the first bill there, MC 625, you'll recall there was a discussion of this bill once before with Council, and as the bill came in, it mandates a system-wide closure for 6 days. The 6 days are listed there in the first page of the memo. And among other things, the council had some concerns about some informational testimony that had been provided by a Board of Ed rep at the public hearing on this bill. The board had been concerned that the bill would apply to next school year, and that calendar has already been set by the board. That was one concern. Another concern was that these 6 days are already on the calendar as no students attending. 5 of them are non-instructional days where neither students or teachers attend, and one of them is teachers attend but students don't. Each of those days for the SEIU workers, the hourly 10-month employees at MCPS, each of those 6 days, they are non-work, no pay days under current practice, current law. And the board was concerned that by making these 6 days mandatory school-wide closures, that it would impact collective bargaining negotiations with SEIU employees. And they were concerned because if
Museum, what will they find?
Well, this museum, given the name Josiah Henson Museum and Park, it tells a little bit
concerned with the original bill that one of the days, Eid al-Fitr, it was by making it a mandatory holidays when teachers are not there either, because it's currently a professional development day next year, that by making it a day where even teachers aren't there, they'd have to extend the school year by a day. So The bill has been amended, first by the Education, Elections, and Health Committee in the delegation, and then on Friday by the full delegation with some amendments. First, the bill delays its application until FY 2026-2027 school year. It also strikes language that makes it a system-wide closure for teachers and students, and modifies it to be on these days, no student attendance. It also adds Juneteenth as one of these days, no student attendance. It was described by the sponsor as consistent with current practice. And I did speak with the board's legislative affairs coordinator, Patty Ersprung, and I think it is consistent in the sense of when students attend, when teachers attend, et cetera. She did share with me some ongoing concern. She indicated that the board has not taken a position on the bill as amended. The board won't take a position. Well, actually, at the time I wrote this memo, the full delegation hadn't taken a position. They now have. She had indicated to me that the board wouldn't take a formal position until the full delegation acted on the bill, which they have now. She said that the amendments do not fully address the board's concerns about fiscal impact because of the potential, it's my understanding, potential influence on collective bargaining, possibly. That's possibly. And she indicated that the bill still conflicts with the board's 2025 session platform, which is essentially local autonomy on decisions like this for the board, for the calendar. And she anticipated it would be result in an opposition to the bill by the board. County executive supported the original version of the board. He supports this version. I should mention, I reached out to 2 representatives of SEIU last Thursday, I believe, and asked for comments on the bill, and I have not received any. So I think that's the update at this point.
And what did the full delegation decide on Friday?
They adopted the amendments that the committee adopted. The amendments I just described were adopted by the full delegation on Friday. Yeah.
Great.
And I erred because this is not the compensation.
Okay.
So.
There's a number of bills on MCPS, or our school, so Council Vice President Jawando.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the update. And that the delegation passed it unanimously, right? Is that?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I could check that, but I believe that's correct.
That was the information I got, but if you
I believe
have
it's correct
different
because it was
information-
portrayed as consistent with
with the
board's
issues.
current practice.
I really appreciate the amendment, the offering of amendments. I am sensitive to the school boards wanting to maintain its autonomy over the schedule. And I appreciate they added Juneteenth. That was one of the things I raised. Normally, you're out of school at Juneteenth, but sometimes you're not, depending. But it's already, there are school things happening. So it is already, if you look on the current MCPS calendar, they already observe Juneteenth, but this would just codify it. I would recommend that we, not take a position. That's my view, based on deference to the board. While I do appreciate the amendments, I'm sensitive to their ability to manage their schedule. So,
Thank you. Okay. All right. Let me go to Councilmember Sales and then Katz and then.
Do we know, thank you, Madam Chair, if there's been a hearing yet for this bill, or if it's been cross-filed?
So this is, at this stage, a local bill that the public hearing was a local hearing in the fall here in Rockville with our delegation.
Okay.
And since the full delegation has now decided that it's going to vote, that it voted on it and took a position, it'll now go to a hearing in the House Standing Committee.
Okay. Okay. I agree with Council Vice President Jawando.
Okay. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I agree with Vice President Jawando as well. But what happens if, as an example, Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur is on a Saturday or Sunday? How does this How does this fit into the law?
I'm not sure.
Because that does happen, obviously, and I'm sure with other religious events, other religious holidays, that would happen. The students would, and the teachers wouldn't be there, but somehow there should be provisions for that.
I can tell you that the bill, as amended, applies to the first day only of Diwali, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, Lunar New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Juneteenth. That's the language of the bill.
Somehow somebody needs to look into that one. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. I'm fine with everything that's been said. I'll note that I've heard from constituents who want this to happen, and I understand because they've been advocating for this for a long time. I also understand the limitations realistically that we face, and I appreciate the amendments to try the effort there to kind of walk the line. I would like to come back to this after the board takes a position, and I would be interested to hear certainly respect the the comments in regards to, them having autonomy over their own calendar. That being said, this went to the state delegation, through the state delegation, because it has not yet been addressed. So if the board decides not to support it, then it would be great if they could also provide any feedback about how they're approaching addressing this issue locally.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the delegation working through some of the issues. Clearly, there might be more that need to be addressed, but I supported the bill before, and I'll continue to support the bill.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So I think Council Vice President Giwando suggested at first not to take a position on that. You want to make a motion to do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can modify. We can, if there's a desire to take a position. I think I had previously. Everyone supports the intent of the bill. Mm-hmm. The question is, what's the best way to get at it? These days are already off. Does the board? But after hearing Councilmember Mink, if we wanted to take hold until the board came back with their discussion, and if we had any additional information, I could move to hold.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of moving to hold until we hear from the Board of Ed? That is 10 to 11. Are you in opposed that or assist? I'd like to be noted as supporting the bill. And Councilmember Glass supports the bill. All right. So this one we will come back to. It stays on our list. Next is the WSSC bill.
Okay, this bill has been. This bill has traveled fast after having a lot of discussion for weeks in the Metro Wash Committee for the delegation and then the delegation itself. So it was amended by the Metropolitan Washington Committee significantly. The full delegation adopted those amendments, also adopted those amendments, and it sped through the Prince George's County delegation and has been voted favorable by the Prince George's County delegation. So the amendments, like I said, are significant. There's a narrative of the amendments in attachment 6, page 30. There's a reprint. Madam President, I can try to do an overview of the key pieces of the bill. Would that be helpful since you haven't heard?
Broad, yeah.
Okay.
And I know we have representatives from WSSC here as
yes,
well.
Exactly.
If they need to jump in. Yeah.
Exactly. So first, it makes the DEP director one of the commission members for Montgomery County. It also gives discretion for that to start at the end of the term for the next commissioner whose term comes to an end, or for the second term that comes to an end. Sort of gives some discretion there when to start this new practice. And so there's some amendments in there that amend current law to make that workable. Director doesn't have to be a resident of the sanitary district. It's a voting member, can serve as chair or vice chair, and some other tweaks there to make sure that model would work. And of course, to say it's not a salaried position, so some tweaks like that. The bill requires WCC to undertake and prepare a long-range comprehensive financial plan. I won't go into the specific elements of that. That's on page 35. It requires that a lot of information be posted on WCC's searchable website relating to that long-range comprehensive planning undertaking. It strikes provisions of the bill that would have modified the number of times that a ratepayer can go to WSSC and for a relief for a unusually high bill. Strikes that and requires a report, essentially a report on how often customers are doing that, and also to develop new processes for how to handle these high bill situations. Interestingly, it goes to the Inspector General's office and has added some provisions there going to the independence of that office. The budget of the Office of Inspector General for WSSC now goes through their audit committee for recommendations to the general manager and then the commission. The bill would skip the general manager stage, so the Office of Inspector General's budget would go through the audit committee and then to the commission. It adds a requirement every 3 years for an external independent peer review of WSSC, and it outlines what would be included in that peer review, which would be submitted to the county councils on both sides and the delegation. And importantly, it maintains a provision that requires WSSC to appoint a representative to the Avenel Coordinating Committee. And I know others here are much more familiar with the details of that situation. I know Monica Marquina, the director of WSSC's Intergovernmental Affairs, could speak to that as well. So it maintains that. And then there had been a requirement that the Department of Legislative Services do a major evaluation of WSSC, and that has been shifted to WSSC's Inspector General doing that, and the Inspector General submitting it to the DLS, and DLS then reviewing it and reporting back to the delegation. I guess one more thing was the bill had required had included some language about WSSC doing long-range planning scenarios under which it might use its ad valorem taxing authority, which it has never done and does not intend to do. So the language that's still in the bill still requires a report. It acknowledges the General Assembly's intent that even though WSSC does not never has imposed the taxes, doesn't intend to impose the taxes, that WSC will nonetheless work with SSTAT and other stakeholders to assess ad valorem taxes that might be necessary to support Commission's debt, and then to report again to the delegations and the county councils. I think those are the key provisions. And again, Ms. Marquina could speak more to how those came about, if you'd like.
Right. And I'm sorry if I missed it, but this is also something that the delegation took up on Friday. And
well, what happened on Friday is that the Prince George's County delegation voted it out. So it's now gone through both
right
delegations and is on to the House Standing Committee hearing.
Great. And has WSSC taken a formal position?
So that might be more appropriate for Ms. Marquina. I did listen. The commission did review these amendments at its monthly commission meeting last week. Mm-hmm. What I took from that was it affirmatively supported the Inspector General changes, that part of it. It was not Ms. Marquita can speak to whether there's been formal amendments placed along the way. The commission also instructed WCC staff to continue discussions with the sponsor about the ad valorem piece, and then I'll defer to you.
Of course, thank you so much, Kathleen. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Monica Marquina, WCC Water Government Affairs Director. Great to see everyone today. As Kathleen mentioned, WCC Water has collaborated closely with the bill sponsor. We appreciate all the work that he's put into it to address our concerns. And at the end of the day, there's two remaining issues that we're still working through. The Commission is not taking a formal position, but we have been directed by our commissioners and provided us with some guidance on how to go about working with the bill sponsor. So overall, the two remaining issues are Avenel Coordinating Committee and the ad valorem tax. With the Avenel Coordinating Committee, as you know, the way the bill is written currently, WCC Water feels strongly that this moves us towards arbitration and litigation. We do recognize that Delegate Corman has a difference of opinion at this. He's recently made a recommendation for an agreement outside of legislative remedy, which we do appreciate, and so we're currently reviewing that. So there is a potential to have that provision removed, but also address the concerns of the Avenel community. WCC Water is committed to continuing to collaborate with the community and other stakeholders to reach a balanced solution that aligns with the interests of the community, but also of our ratepayers in both of our counties that we need to be sensitive to. And Kathleen also mentioned the ad valorem tax. This is another area that we appreciate Chair Corman working with us. It's now in the uncodified language, and it has some language that we do appreciate that reiterates that we have no intention of using the ad valorem tax. It's this for this one-time assessment or report to work with SDAT and the counties. We just want to make sure that our customers, our rating agencies, and others understand that the Commission has no intention of taking this action to use the ad valorem tax as a mechanism to address our debt services or other areas. And so those are two areas that the Commission felt strongly about to working with Delegate Corman. But as I've said, we've made many amendments since this bill was introduced. But the Commission has not taken a formal position on the bill.
Great. Thank you for being here and giving us that update. I have Councilmember Sales and then Friedson.
Thank you, Ms. Marquina, for being here. Given that one of the requirements of the bill is for the DEP director to become a commissioner, have we checked with the DEP director to see if he has the capacity to take on this role and responsibility?
Yes, the DP director has been involved in reviewing the bill, thinks it's a good idea, and advised the county executive he thought it was a good idea, and the county executive supports it.
Okay, all right.
Councilmember Friedson?
Yes, thank you. I've worked very closely with the sponsor here. We share the jurisdiction in our districts. This has been an ongoing conversation, and appreciate the collaboration that has taken place between WSSC and the sponsor and working through some of these issues. I do think we held this last time to allow for some of those conversations to occur. There are a couple items that still need to be worked through, but ultimately I am comfortable supporting the bill and would allow for some room to allow those negotiations to occur, but to show our overall support for the sponsor and the legislative initiative and effort here to move the ball forward. So I would move that we support.
Okay, great. I have a motion to support. I have a second. Not seeing a second. I believe then without objection, we will continue to hold on this until we get more information. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Martinez, for being here and continuing the work on this. All right. I think those were all the local bills. I want to thank the team for continuing to update the chart. So, Councilmember Mink, did you have another bill you wanted to raise before we move on to statewide bills?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Appreciate that. MC 1125, that's the one on the common ownership communities. That one, I've been getting some feedback from residents, especially at Leisure World, but I wonder if their concerns might apply to others as well, about issues that bill could cause them. And so I was looking at the chart to try to figure out exactly where we had landed, which is like hold with support, I think. So I just wanted to see what that held with support means exactly and how that's being communicated, and note that, my preference would be that we send this forward as just holding, not necessarily with the support, until we get some of these questions answered. So their concerns are primarily that it would, without some amendment, that the bill would make governance of COCs much more difficult, and including making it more difficult to get owners and residents to volunteer to serve on common ownership community boards, which is already very challenging.
Great. Do you have an update on that bill? Yeah.
Sure. So the sponsor is aware, the Delegate Spiegel, sponsor when it was in delegation, is aware of Leisure World's concerns. I believe he is working on amendments with them, last I heard, which was about a week ago. So the bill did move out of the delegation unanimously, and so it's going to be heard in the standing committee later this week.
Right. Can we clarify, or I'd like to move to clarify that the council's position is held as opposed to support or held with support?
So could you just remind us what was communicated to the, as the council position?
That would take me a second. Okay. I'm not sure what we wrote on the exact.
It says held with support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were feeling positive.
Right.
We didn't
Towards
do anything
about it.
Right. I will note that I now have stronger feelings about this. We're moving.
Right.
They've got this. They got the bill hearing in the House on Thursday. There are significant concerns being generated that are causing me concerns. And given that, I think that our position was a little bit wishy-washy. I would move that we clarify our position to just being a hold.
Okay. So I have a motion to change our position on this bill to a hold. Do I have a second?
Second.
Council Vice President Giwando, second. Any conversation or questions on that? Not seeing any. All those in favor of changing our position on this bill from a soft support, I guess, to now a hold, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll make it unanimous. It's unanimous.
So noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other local bills? All right, now we're moving on. There were a couple of statewide bills that we just wanted to get an update on. I don't believe we have talked about particularly the Housing for Jobs Act, and it's a big one that we wanted to just get some highlights on and see if, not today, but maybe in the future, take positions on. So I think we have representatives from the Planning Department here.
Madam President, we also have Barbara Jay from the Board of Appeals, and the bill significantly impacts her work as well.
Great.
So just to get started, this is the governor's initiative, and it's intended to create a mechanism for identifying shortages of housing units by comparing housing stock to the total number of jobs in a region and then down to the county level. Specifically, if there's more than 1.5 jobs per housing unit, it's considered a gap, and the bill's provisions get triggered. Once that gap is closed, the bill sort of no longer applies. It's intended to move counties to getting to yes on approval. I mean, this is language we've heard from the governor's reps for months now. And it has language that that requires that housing project applications be approved unless the reason for denial outweighs the community's need for housing, and establishes 9 specific factors that can be used to deny housing project applications. I should add that the reason that Ms. Giovanni is here and Ms. Jay is here is because the definition of housing project application includes site plans, everything the planning can speak to this. It includes conditional uses that go to the Board of Appeals. It includes variances that go to the Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearings. It includes building permits issued by DPS. It's very, very broad. we coordinated a meeting, and your council staff, Naeem Mia, was involved as well, just to go over this bill. Do we all understand it the same way? What issues are there? And I'm in the process of consolidating concerns by OZA, Board of Appeals. I know Ms. Gavani can speak to the Planning Department, DPS, County Attorney's Office. MACO opposes the bill. I know Mr. Friedson probably will call that vote. But MACO is also working on amendments that would possibly allow it to withdraw its opposition, or at least it would make the bill better. In the packet, I've included a lot of amendments that MACO is working on. MACO has also raised a number of questions about this concept of how to measure a gap. A lot of questions about what data is used, how that's calculated, et cetera. Those questions are in your packet, also attachment 8. I know we spoke to the county executive this morning, and from his perspective, he directed us to keep working with MACO on consensus amendments reflecting county concerns, because they're similar throughout the state. I think it might be best to defer to Ms. Gavani and/or Ms. Jay at this point, because I'm still consolidating their concerns. And also, is Victor Salazar here? There might have been, I think a representative of DPS might have been here today as well. I don't see them because of the scope which reaches DPS building permits.
Great. Thank you. Well, I think today, given the short amount of time we have and the complexities of this, if we could just give us some feedback on where we are with the process and where the planning department is, and I'll turn to Ms. Jay.
Lisa Gavoni for the record, Planning Department. So the Planning Board has taken up this bill several times. The Planning Board is supporting this bill with a significant amount of amendments and questions for clarity, a lot of which were referred earlier. The Planning Board feels that this is an important bill that can help get to a place of yes, but it is important to note that for us, at least at the Planning Board rarely denies projects without a good reason. The Planning Board typically approves with conditions. Those conditions tell you what we need to move the project forward, but the Planning Board does not typically deny a lot of projects, so we feel like this is not a large impact for the Planning Board. We do have significant concerns about the methodology and a lot of the details that we're working with the state to get clarity on and through MACO, but that's where the Planning Board is at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Jay?
Hi, Barbara Jay with the Board of Appeals. Our concerns are really more parochial, but this bill does encompass the variances. Speaking on behalf of OZA, it encompasses conditional uses. The definitional section, housing development project and residential real estate projects are not defined, and when they are defined, they encompass these aspects of our work, and they set a different standard for granting these things than has been established by the county council acting as the district council. And in addition to, and as Kathleen alluded to, says that not only do they have, if we wanted to deny something, do they have to meet this other standard, other set of laws, but they also have, the reason for the denial has to clearly outweigh the need for the new housing. And I guess the only other thing I would mention is that this legislation changes the legal standard for review of the board's decisions from substantial evidence to clear and convincing evidence. It also changes the appeals process for most of these types of decisions so that they go straight to the circuit court.
Great. Thank you for providing that overview. Does anyone have any questions at this time? No? Councilmember Friedson, as our representative of MACO, do you have anything to update us on MACO's position?
No, I think you heard it, and it sounds like the county executive has a similar view. There's a number of amendments, some of which are technical and some of which are more philosophical in terms of land use authority, but that MACO is trying to get addressed. And I don't think that support or opposition of a statewide bill that's the governor's top priority outside the budget is a meaningful way for us to be engaged. But I think having our subject matter experts working with MACO to try to work through some of these issues is probably the best approach. I do appreciate the fact that the governor is moving forward with a philosophical view that housing is infrastructure, and we need to have housing infrastructure in order to jumpstart the economy. That's a very important message that we need to send. We need to be easier to build housing than it is, but there are significant implementation and local concerns that are not unique to us in many cases, and I think those things can hopefully be worked through.
Thank you, and thank you for folks being here today and providing us with that update. As Councilmember Friedson said, given this is such a priority of the governor and a pretty complex bill, we just want to give an overview to the council on where that was. All right, so then we'll move on. I think the next statewide bill we just wanted to highlight was on the regional transportation authorities.
Yes, so last year there was a piece of legislation that was introduced. It was very, very broad. It just literally said there are these authorities. This is a more sophisticated version of that. It basically creates 3 transportation authorities. They are, there's one in the Baltimore region. It's the Baltimore Region Authority. It's Anne Arundel, Baltimore, and Howard counties in Baltimore City. And then there's the Capital Region, and that's Frederick, Montgomery, and Prince George's. And then the third one is the Southern Maryland Region, and that's Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's counties. So a lot of the fairly lengthy piece of legislation is, I don't want to call it boilerplate, but creating the legalese of creating these authorities. But what is unique about this piece of legislation relative to last year's is it actually creates financing mechanisms. So it creates financing funds for these 3 regional authorities. And the sources of those, for the funds are retail sales tax, hotel tax, and transfer tax. And so and it goes into a lot of the detail about the decision-making, the creation of the authorities, that they have an executive director who's on the authorities. It's county leaders, it's municipal leaders, because there's municipalities involved in a lot of this. And then what their charges are, what type of flexibility they have. They would be able to issue debt, and also about how the financing, how it's split down at the local level. But it's largely a 70 authority, 30 back to the subdivisions in some manner. And that's the bill. It's a big bill. I mean, this would be a complete, obviously a complete departure from the way that Maryland has structured its means by which it policy-wise thinks about infrastructure investment and finances it. So I know that the House sponsor here is Delegate Spiegel. He was the sponsor of last year's bill too. I don't know. I mean, it is a big piece of legislation, and we spent earlier a lot of time talking about the state's general fund problems. It also has very significant transportation funding problems as well. So it'll be interesting to hear, where this goes, if it goes anywhere this year. But I think that the discussion about the piece of legislation could be interesting. So.
Great. Thanks for highlighting that. Anyone have any questions on that bill? No? All right.
Okay.
We have one more just to get an update on.
That's right. This is a piece of legislation that you are familiar with. I'd call it the tax rate differential legislation. So municipalities have the ability to distinguish between different types of properties and apply taxes to that. The counties do not have that same authority. And so what this piece of legislation would do, and it's been in a couple of times in different formats, is authorize that ability for county governments to pass local laws to allow the setting of differential rates between commercial, residential, industrial. And one of the criticisms of the piece of legislation that was introduced last year was the inability, particularly for mixed-use projects, to distinguish between residential commercial. So this piece of legislation creates a scheme by which counties who wanted to pass enabling legislation to do this would create exemption and/or credit systems to ensure that residential properties within mixed-use buildings, where there might be retail, commercial, et cetera, would not be subject to the tax, or they would be exempted from it, or there would be a crediting system applied to credit that off. So the purpose of these funds, if a county would do this, they're restricted to how they might use the funds, and it's for transportation, including the creation of special taxing districts. It would be for transportation capital. And it's also would be allowed to be applied county-wide, and a county could use that to help fund the local share that they're obligated on the blueprint. So those are the two uses of the fund. Again, this is enabling legislation, would require a local piece of legislation to pass to implement it. And again, this is mirrors to some degree, but with more restrictions, including what the rate differential could be, the authority that municipalities have now.
Great. Thank you for that update. Anyone have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Mink.
Just commenting that obviously, given the times that we're in, any kind of authority that we can have to even be able to consider more options for generating revenue, I think is important. So I'll just note that. Okay. And I hope that as we get more details, that we can return to this conversation.
All right. Not seeing any other questions on that one. We can return to it as we see how the session is going. There was nothing else in the packet to review. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? All right. If there are, let us know for our next session. I just want to thank the team for being here and all your work.
That can respond quickly, and so people think twice about doing something here. And it's anybody who's been around Montgomery County long enough knows that's a change in approach to what we're doing, but it's a necessary change in approach. An owner or a tenant of property that is used as a residence or business can apply for a grant for a security camera for your home, and up to, I think it's 5 security cameras for businesses. So if businesses want additional protection, they can get these cameras.